Would an interest rate rise actually do anything to dampen inflation that to some extent isn't necessarily homegrown?
I think when you've got interest rates of 0.25% and you've got inflation of 3%, that means your real interest rate, as we economists call it, is very, very negative. That's a dangerous situation to be in.
Right, but I mean, if we hadn't had Brexit, do you accept that there wouldn't have been that depreciation in sterling? It wouldn't have fallen to that extent?
No, at the end of 2015, the IMF itself, before the Brexit vote, said sterling was 15% overvalued. We're roughly about where the IMF said we should be. Remember, all the numbers you talk about, the depreciation of sterling, are from the day before the vote, when sterling was massively bid up because everyone was listening to the BBC telling them that Leave was going to lose.
Halligan, do you think there is the likelihood of a trade deal, or it will need that transition period, and that transition period needs to now be confirmed to give certainty to business and government?
No, I've written for the last couple of years, I don't think there'll be a trade deal with the EU by the end of the Article 50 period. I argued it in my latest book with Jerry Lyons, Clean Brexit. I'm actually quite relaxed about the idea of no free trade agreement by March 2019. I think it's the most likely outcome. I don't think it's an economic catastrophe at all.
But what about the OECD saying it will be?
Well, you know, I watched the Secretary-General of the OECD on the beginning of June 2016 tell a room full of students at the London School of Economics that there would be a huge negative shock if we even voted for Brexit. I don't
immediately. I
don't take their forecast particularly seriously. They've been, every single quarter that their forecasts have come out since the Brexit vote, they've been downgraded in the UK. And the UK economy so far, you know, it's certainly not clear what's going to happen, but the UK economy so far has confounded their relentless drumbeat of negativity.
Let's talk about households, because, as you say, inflation does affect households, how much money you've got at the end of the month. The Resolution Foundation, the UK Trade Policy Observatory, have said that the average family would see costs rise by £260 a year if Britain were to begin trading with the EU on World Trade Organization terms, something that you don't think would be a catastrophe, as you said, and the worst-hit households could see a hit of £500 to their budgets. People might think that was a catastrophe.
Yeah, clearly, if we go into WTO rules, we will charge reciprocal tariffs with the EU. That's how we trade with the US, with China, with most of our trade, Joe, is outside the EU under WTO rules.
Yeah, so but if it all, or even more of it went onto WTO rules, do you accept it?
It can't be all that bad, because that's the part of our trade where we actually generate a surplus and earnings for this country. And also, while I agree with Linda very much, we agree on the uncertainty. We've seen very good foreign direct investment in the UK since the Brexit vote.
Although those figures were challenged yesterday, it wasn't.
But they're OECD figures.
Well, okay.
They're OECD figures, so they can't be all bad.
So you don't accept those OECD figures that did indicate yesterday that actually that level of direct foreign investment into this country was an illusion, is what was said in the report?
No, I think we're a very long way from the OECD's previous forecasted headline forecast that there would be an immediate negative shock when we voted to leave. But also another point that's not often made, and I think this should impact on the political debate, is when we trade under WTO rules with the EU, and I do think that's the most likely outcome, because we have a trade deficit with the EU, we will generate in tariff revenues, you know, 3, 4, 5, even £6 billion a year. That money can be used to offset shoppers who feel that their imports from the EU are now slightly more expensive, and also, crucially, firms that could be negatively affected if we move to WTO tariffs.